Welcome to this edition of The District. I am Joan Garner, your Fulton County Commissioner for District 4. On today's show, we will be joined by Paul Morris, President and CEO of the Atlanta Beltline, Inc. The Atlanta Beltline is the most comprehensive revitalization effort ever undertaken in the city of Atlanta and among the largest, most wide-ranging urban redevelopment and mobility projects currently underway in the United States. We have a great show planned. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the District. I am Joan Garner, your Fulton County Commissioner for District 4. Joining us today is Paul Morris, President and CEO of the Atlanta Beltline, Inc. Paul, welcome to the District.
Thank you, Commissioner.
It's great to have you here today.
It's great to be here.
So, Paul, let's start by you telling us a little bit about yourself and how it came that you became the director of the Atlanta Beltline.
Well, I'm trained as an urban planner and landscape architect and have spent the bulk of my career as a consultant strategist for government agencies around large-scale projects. And this was one of those rare opportunities to do something in a city where we got to bring all those skills together.
Great. So can you give us a little history about the Beltline itself?
I can. It's always enjoyable to reflect back on how we got to where we are and to think back that a graduate student, Ryan Gravel from Georgia Tech, could have had an idea as a part of his thesis to connect all the historic neighborhoods of the city and use old abandoned railroads as the idea to do that. And to see that over the many years we've now been into it come to fruition bit by bit is really quite exciting.
So we know that the Beltline is extensive and it surrounds the city, it brings neighborhoods together. Could you talk about the route of the Beltline and how it flows in and out of our city?
Yeah, for a lot of people it's new territory. Most people didn't realize there were these old four railroads, largely abandoned and underutilized, that had pretty much navigated in a pear-shaped corridor around the city and were hidden under kudzu and behind old warehouses and buildings and never connected. So this really was an opportunity to connect them in one continuous loop and have 45 neighborhoods encircling the downtown all be connected by this corridor.
Well, we know that it's more than just a route or green space, etc. So is there programming associated with the Beltline? Could you talk about
a lot of people think of the Beltline as primarily a trail for bikes and pedestrians. And that is, for sure, what is a centerpiece of it in its early years. But what it is much more than that is it's really about providing connectivity and unifying these neighborhoods through new streets, a transit system, and then alongside that, spending a lot of time reclaiming old, broken down property, cleaning it up, putting it back into productive use with housing, jobs, and economic development. But for many people, this project is really about connecting the people of the city, using this as an opportunity for neighborhoods and residents to come together, whether it's through the social events and the festivals that go on that are a part of the Beltline, or through all of the other programming activities, some of which are about exercise and getting out and experiencing the Beltline, others really about seeing nature through the Arboretum or art through the Art on the Atlanta Beltline exhibit.
Well, I love the Beltline. It's in my neighborhood and it flows throughout District 4, and so I'm very excited about what I'm seeing so far and looking forward to future programming as well. What I really enjoy when I'm on the Beltline is the artwork. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us about the art on the Beltline?
Me too. I'm a big fan. And it's been a joy to see how that program has evolved over a number of years. It started out actually as an exercise somewhat spontaneously to find a way to get people onto the Beltline, because Atlanta had not historically been a walking and biking town. And so by putting art on the corridor, it invited people to discover it. And in the process, increase their activity, understand and enjoy the walk or the bike, and really improve their health. And what happened is that it was such an early success that it became an annual event. And we've now come to the point where in the first year there might have been 300 or 400 people total over a couple of months of the exhibition. And last year we saw over 23,000.
That's incredible. Let's talk about the affordable housing piece on the Beltline, because I know that that's a piece that many of our residents and citizens are interested in. And I see every day the building that's happening on the Beltline. So could you talk about the housing component as well as the whole affordable housing piece?
We take that issue and that opportunity very seriously. While we focus on the infrastructure, and that's what everybody gets to see come out of the ground, for us, the building and rebuilding of the neighborhoods, especially through affordable housing, is essential. And we do it very targetedly. We work with existing residents to find ways to provide grants for rehabs of their houses so they can stay in their homes. We work with young professionals, paraprofessionals, service workers in the community to find ways for them to be able to buy homes in the neighborhood. And we work with developers to actually build apartments that will be near the Beltline, so everyone has an opportunity to live along the Beltline.
And so are you finding that people really understand what the Beltline is and the importance that it has to our city?
I actually find that most people underestimate what it's doing to our city. And even those who are aware of it think of it in rather casual terms until they have been on it. And then they find themselves discovering an experience they've never had before. And the joy and the excitement and the almost kind of connected sense of community that has emerged around the Beltline is really refreshing and new. And so it is much bigger than most people realize. It extends way beyond the railroad tracks in the corridor into the neighborhoods. And most importantly, it's created a canvas of sorts to display who we are as a city and an opportunity for people to gather.
Well, I love being able to walk on the Beltline, go to restaurants, go to the grocery store, I mean, things like that, as well as walk my dog on the Beltline. So I am learning a lot more about the Beltline, and I'm happy to have joined the Beltline Board of Directors. And
well, I wanted to say something about that, actually, and I wanted to thank you so much for making yourself available. Your leadership for many years has really helped the Beltline continue to evolve. And many viewers don't realize that Fulton County is one of our principal partners. And through your leadership over the years, we've been able to do a lot of things to ensure that the Beltline continues to move forward, that it has the financial and political support it needs, but most importantly, that you are a voice of the community that helps us make sure that we are doing especially what the residents and neighborhoods think is important.
Well, thank you, Paul. We will take a short break, and when we return, we'll continue our discussion with Paul Morris, President and CEO of the Atlanta Beltline. You are watching The District. Stay tuned. There's more to come. Welcome back to The District, everyone. I am Joan Garner, your Fulton County Commissioner for District 4. If you just tuned into the show, we are having a discussion with Paul Morris, President and CEO of the Atlanta Beltline. So Paul, before the break, you were telling us about the affordable housing component of the Beltline. Could you tell us more about that and
Sure.
how that program really works?
A lot of people aren't aware that there's a shift from a lot of parts of the region for folks to want to move back into the city. And the Beltline has become a great location for them. But the risk that runs with that is the possibility that those that live there today could be displaced. And we worry a lot about that. So we've taken it upon ourselves to institute a series of programs that give us the ability to either directly influence or create opportunities for folks to stay in their homes and join the community along the Beltline. And in the early days of the Beltline, that was done largely through what we call our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which was set up as part of the initial funding for the Beltline and made available to folks who wanted to buy a home through down payment assistance or through developers who wanted to build housing to get funding or gap financing for their project because they couldn't necessarily make it work at affordable prices. Since then, though, we've learned some interesting and important lessons, that there are really two important and potentially at-risk parts of the community. The first is what we feel like our senior population, who have stayed in these neighborhoods through the tough times and watched a lot of the neighborhoods that touch the Beltline go down, experience a lot of disinvestment. And for them, what we've done is, in a unique partnership with the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta, forged a structured partnership in which we actually are able, together with them, to provide funding, especially for those senior citizens who live adjacent to the Beltline, to see their homes improved so they can stay. A lot of times they don't have the money. They live on modest incomes, fixed incomes, and every dollar counts. And so as the roof begins to wear out, or the windows begin to wear out, or they have other issues that are really structural and important to keep that a safe, warm, and dry house, we can come alongside with a grant and provide that grant to actually make those improvements for them. The other group that's really important and a part of this existing program with Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta is what we call kind of our young folks, the paraprofessionals, the service workers, those who are employed in every business within Atlanta and who want to grow up in those neighborhoods and be able to buy in those neighborhoods. Yes. And for this program, solely for them, we've created a carve-out of funding that will actually provide down payment assistance because they don't have the money to make that down payment assistance. It will require a small amount of money on their part, but for the most part, this program will actually give them an opportunity to buy a home in or near the Beltline itself.
That's great. Could you explain the Design Review Committee?
Yeah, a lot of people look at us and to us to ensure that as the Beltline grows, the kind of improvements that are made, whether it's rehabilitation projects or new construction, are done in a really quality way. And through Mayor Reed and our board of directors, we were directed to, over the last 6 months, create a study that would determine how we could have a more meaningful influence over that. And we formed what we call the Design Review Committee that was recently approved by City Council that gives us the responsibility before a project comes to City Hall and look at it with the developers and make sure that it is consistent with the long-range objectives of the master plans for the Beltline, that it meets the requirements of what's called the overlay district, which ensures that it's laid out properly. And with the Design Review Committee, go that one extra step and drive that project towards quality design. So we call it our Design Excellence Initiative. And we provide advice to them, we give them advice if it's not going well, and we ensure that it not only is beautiful and functional, but that it fits into each neighborhood.
Okay, so here's the question. When is the streetcar going to connect to the Beltline?
So, it's funny you say that. When I first came to Atlanta, there were a lot of folks who were just chomping at the bit to see the streetcar come to fruition. They'd watched the planning for years and years. They saw it under construction. They couldn't wait. But there were a lot of people who were somewhat circumspect. They had not seen streetcars in Atlanta for over 50 years, and they weren't sure whether it was something that made sense. What was exciting for me, having come from other cities I've worked where I got to be a part of streetcars, was to know deep down that once it was operating, they couldn't wait again. And so when the streetcar did start operating, it was literally weeks before people were starting to say, when's it extending now to the Beltline? And fortunately, we have been working on behalf of the City of Atlanta to evaluate a whole network of reintroduced routes that will connect to the existing streetcar now that's underway and provide not only connections to the Beltline, but actually have the streetcar operating and circumnavigating around the Beltline. We're completing those studies. We're getting approval all the way up to the federal government because they are huge supporters and often funders of that expansion. And we're working with the mayor's office to figure out where that next leg would come and how long it would be. But it's not too far out.
Good. So how is the Beltline strengthening the surrounding communities?
Yeah. A lot of people think of the Beltline initially as a park and open space project. But more importantly, it's strengthening communities by rebuilding neighborhood areas that were long abandoned by industry, cleaning up contaminated brownfields, putting properties back into productive use, extending beyond the infrastructure to neighborhoods where we do streetscape improvement projects, putting housing back in neighborhoods, adding jobs to neighborhoods. But we feel like the most important thing we're doing is creating a platform for people to connect socially and to become more active physically. And it really is an opportunity, as you were saying earlier, to get out there and walk and bike, and enjoy the experience, and also create an expanded lifestyle that's more enjoyable in the outdoors. And so that strengthening for us is really essential.
Well, speaking of expanding and strengthening lifestyles, you know, the county, we are interested in healthy people because healthy people make healthy counties. Could you talk more about the green space and the parks that are around the Beltline?
So far, we have spent about $400 million of public and private money to not just build the initial segments of the Beltline Trail itself, but to build several signature parks. A lot of people hear now about the old historic Fourth Ward Park, which we kind of think as one of the first jewels of the Beltline. And that project, which is about 17 acres on the east side, was essentially an old derelict industrial site, buildings either torn down or burned down, spalling concrete as far as the eye could see. And we were able to take that project and through a unique partnership with the Atlanta Beltline and the city's Department of Public Works and Watershed Management and Parks, restore that to a natural environment, manage a really long-standing, troublesome stormwater problem, and introduce some really beautiful landscapes and opportunities for people to play, highlighted by what we feel like is the funnest thing, and that is a new splash pad for kids. The first of its kind in the city. Many more have come since. Another project that's a little further down the street was the introduction of what we call the historic Fourth Ward Skate Park.
Yes.
That was the city's first public skate park, and it has just been a big hit of all ages. There are kids out there that are our age, but consider themselves kids and have really enjoyed the skate park opportunities. Beyond that, we started to work in neighborhoods themselves. So there's Perkison Park and D.H. Stanton Park and soon to come Langford Park, existing parks where we are actually on behalf of the city's Parks and Rec Department going in and revitalizing, regenerating, and improving those parks with new improvements. Stanton Park has become one of the favorites of the South Side community of the Beltline near Peoplestown, where you have folks that all summer long have the community buildings already booked up and the ball fields already booked up. And around to Langford Park, where we're getting ready to build our second skate park.
Could you talk a little bit about what you've seen as a return on investment with economic development opportunities along the Beltline?
Yes. At the end of the day, some people will say it's all about the money. How was it spent? Was it wisely spent? And did we get our money's worth? There was a value attached to the dollars that citizens of Atlanta have chosen to invest in order to bring these areas back to life. And as I was mentioning a little earlier, we've put about $400 million to date in public and private money, largely driven by early investment from the private sector, philanthropy, foundations, and corporations, to the tune of almost $40 million of that $400 million, into the ground, in physical infrastructure, cleanups, building restoration, site restoration, and project construction. To our surprise, through the recession, we saw continued growth. When a lot of the other parts of the region were stopping cold and losing ground, neighborhoods along the Beltline where the improvements were being made were coming back to life. And as a result, we have now exceeded $2.4 billion in private development along the Beltline, much of it within walking distance of where our improvements are being made. So in simple terms, that's about a 6-to-1 return on investment. And that's, we think, a good start. More to come with the projects that follow.
Great. So going back to the review committee, the design review committee, how does one get involved in that?
We have a couple different ways. We have the committee itself, which is in the process of forming its membership, some of whom are driven by Atlanta Beltline and the city because we need technical folks. But some of the positions which we're seeking are outside experts in architecture and urban planning who have practiced that trade or that profession and can be part of it to really evaluate these projects from an open perspective and ensure that we're getting input from folks around the city. Beyond that, though, every time we go through the process of receiving pre-applications and applications that are going to go eventually to the city, we will have our own version of a public meeting where we will go over what we've seen. We will discuss the recommendations that are being submitted to the city for review, because this isn't separate and apart from the city. This is before. It's kind of a pre-submittal opportunity. And then city planning department and ultimately the commissions will review the material through public hearings. So there's multiple steps where people can get involved. But most importantly, to follow these projects, and when they see the signs in their neighborhood that there's a project is being considered and they know they're along the Beltline, reach out to us and let us know what you think.
I know that you have tours of the Beltline. So what can one learn from taking a tour on the Beltline?
Well, I will say firsthand, the tours are the best way to get to know about Atlanta Beltline activity. They have been going on for now 8 years. They started out before the Beltline was ever being built as a way to help people envision this grand plan. We have Friday and Saturday morning tours by bus, but we also have bike tours, walking tours. We have opportunities for people to go on tours and see the focus on the Arboretum, which is an element of the program. And they're all available through the website. You can sign up or by calling the Atlanta Beltline, and you can get on a list and become a part of those tours and learn not just about what is in front of you, but learn about the history of the city and these wonderful neighborhoods that are so different, right? People think about Atlanta, and much like and sometimes more than many other cities is a city of neighborhoods. And they're all very unique and different and have great stories and great culture and great architecture and great open space to talk about as a part of those stories.
And so what does Atlanta plan to accomplish with the Beltline?
Well, I think as I've looked back on the history of this idea, this germ of an idea that has grown into something that has reached international levels of recognition, I find that what people think most about this project is it is a way for the Atlanta to come together. If through this investment of infrastructure, we can bring neighborhoods and people together to live and work, to shop and play, we have made great strides in nurturing and enriching the economy and the culture of the city. And the Beltline, in a very unique way, is using public dollars invested in places that would otherwise never see it as a way to make that possible.
So, Paul, I have attended our groundbreakings and I'm looking forward to working more with the Beltline. Could you tell our viewing audience how they might get involved with the Beltline and how they might contact you to get information, such as through your website or Facebook or Twitter?
I'd love to.
All of those things.
We are pretty popular. We have over 50,000 friends or likes on our website and on Facebook and Twitter and even through LinkedIn and other social media outlets. But the way that most people really get involved is through volunteering. And there are amazing opportunities for almost anything somebody might feel they have an interest in. And believe it or not, we have a partner organization called the Atlanta Beltline Partnership that comes alongside us kind of as our sister organization. And their job is to not only be a voice for the Beltline and ensure that it is coming to fruition to meet everyone's aspirations, but they really take the lead on all of those programs that provide opportunities for involvement, whether it's exercise programs or walking tours or working to support Trees Atlanta when they're planting trees. There's so many obvious and very direct ways that everybody who lives and works in Atlanta can be a part, or for folks who just are in the metro area that really see the Atlanta Beltline as theirs to plug in. And they can do it on the website, they can sign up for volunteer opportunities, or they can reach out to us and call us at the Atlanta Beltline if they have any questions.
Great. Thank you so much. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. When we return, I will share my closing thoughts. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the district. Today we were joined by Paul Morris, President and CEO of the Atlanta Beltline. City leaders across the world spend decades seeking ways to upgrade infrastructure, improve housing opportunities, revolutionize transportation services, promote new job growth, and bring communities together. The Atlanta Beltline accomplishes every one of these elements, and as the project takes shape, it will provide a blueprint for urban renewal that will be envied and followed by cities across the country and around the world. I want to thank my guest, Paul Morris, for the information he provided us today, and thank you for joining us on The District. That's our show for today. Feel free to contact my District 4 office anytime by calling us at 404-612-8226. You can email us at district4@fultoncountyga.gov, tweet with us at ComJoanGarner, and of course, friend us on Facebook. Until we meet again, I am your District 4 Fulton County Commissioner, Joan Garner. Thanks for watching the District.